Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Teas. Without inspirational teas, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealteas.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.com. Again, that's dealtohealteas.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and to fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of your social media platforms and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Also, make sure you guys are checking us out on our new YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube. Again, that's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube, and there you will find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, as well as the Girl Dad Discussions podcast on our YouTube channel. Again, the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube. There's also a couple other podcasts that we have on there that you guys can check out. So again, make sure you guys are checking us out at our YouTube channel, the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Also, our product of the week. As you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay on the air is by bringing you amazing products for you to purchase in order to help us financially. So our products of the week for this week is our Purpose Journal, as well as our Purpose Planner, which are both available on Amazon, because I believe that we are to journal to be able to keep track of where we are and where we've been in our lives, as well as plan for our future. So you can get your copy of our Purpose Journal and our Purpose Planner on Amazon. The links are in the descriptions below this video, whether you're watching it on YouTube or listening to it on your Apple Podcasts or whatever your podcast platform is that you use. If you look into the descriptions, you will find the links for our books, which is our Purpose Journal and our Purpose Planner. Now, today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest, Miss Luanda Dockery. How are you today?
I am well, Ernest. Thank you so much for having me on.
No problem. First of all, let me say thank you for being here, because you could have been anywhere else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. And so we're going to jump right into this thing do me a favor, and I'm gonna call you Miss Lou if I can,
That's
right?
fine.
Because affectionately, we know each other, and so that's what I like to call you. So, Miss Lou, do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience, and tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, again, my name is Luanda Dockery. I am the CEO of Luanda Dockery Ministries, and our goal is to help people achieve and grow to become their best self. We use faith, we use educational resources as well as services to encourage others who are struggling, who feel like they're alone, who feel like they can't do it. We encourage you to let you know that you can, that you're not alone. And we do this on a step by step basis. We do have workshops, we do one on ones, we can do also a group session. I go here and I go there, and I speak to a lot of individuals to help them realize that what you're going through, you're not the first, you probably won't be the last. And more than likely, there's somebody sitting right in your midst that's going through the exact same thing you're going through. So it's my mission, it's my joy, it's my pleasure to help people achieve their best self.
I love it. I love it. So, Miss Lou, one thing that I know about us that's in this space of helping others, we generally do it from a space of experience, right? And we generally help others through the same things that we ourselves has needed help through at some point. So, in your life, coming up to this point where you are now, to be able to help others kind of get, learn to live their best life, what was like your life experience that led you to come to the realization that you needed to live your best life? And then after that experience, what was it that made you say now that you're going to teach others to do the same?
Well, my very first experience was rejection. I experienced rejection at the age of 14. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, that's puppy love. Oh, 14, you don't know anything about anything. But there is something that's so very true about being rejected. And that 14-year-old experienced that in such a deep and vulnerable way that I carried that with me throughout my teenage years. So much so that I became very promiscuous. I began to drink alcohol. I was looking for love in all the wrong places.
Mm-hmm.
I became a teen mother and a teen single mother, by the way, because yeah, he didn't stay around, and it was in those moments that I realized I have to do this on my own. But I was still struggling. I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't have anyone to direct me and show me this is what you need to do, or this is how you need to handle this, or this is where you need to go. So I was doing everything on my own and doing it all wrong, literally doing it all wrong. I ended up, long story short, I had three children and I was raising them on my own. I had to do everything. Let me rewind that. With the help of God,
Mm-hmm.
I raised those three children on my own. And I'm so grateful for that because that's how I got through. I didn't think that I would make it, but I did. And come to age 46, I actually found, or I was found by
Mm-hmm.
someone who I loved very dearly. and who loved me very dearly, loved my children very dearly. And so we began our life together. We began our life. And it was something that I knew that in my struggles, everything that I had been through, it had led me to this very spot. I knew that I had to identify, there were five things that I taught myself to do to get myself up out of that rut and out of that struggle. And I had to identify the negativity and the distractions. That was number one. I had to make sure that I put blinders on
Mhm.
in order to concentrate and to focus on the things that were important to me and not the world because I was a people pleaser. Again, I was searching for love in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
And so, with that, I identified the distractions and the negativity and I got rid of them. That was one of the hardest things to do. And then I decided that I needed to declutter a space for me to have solitude. Now, there's nothing worse than trying to find solitude in clutter,
Hmm.
noise, and chaos, and things going on all around you. I found that even if I had to go into the bathroom for 5 minutes to get that moment of solitude, I did that for myself. And I was able to listen, I was able to hear, I was able to even speak into the silence to hear my own voice and not someone else's voice.
Yeah.
That was number two. Number three, I had to reflect while I was in that moment of solitude. I began to reflect on my life. Where am I? What am I doing? Who am I doing it with? Why am I doing it? Is this benefiting me? Is this hurting me? All of these things came to be once I got to a place of solitude and I was able to reflect. Number four, I began to journal. I heard you say earlier that it's important that you journal. It is so very important that you journal. Write down what you're feeling, even if it doesn't make sense. You write down what you're feeling, where you're at. Why did what something that someone said, why did that affect me in such a way? Why did I react in such a way? How am I going to deal with it without blowing up or reverting back to the old me? How am I going to handle it? And when you're journaling, you get a chance to see on paper where you're at.
Yeah.
And in the journaling, you begin to write those affirmations. That's number five. You write those affirmations down. You begin to speak to yourself. You begin to tell yourself, I'm worth it. I'm beautiful. I'm enough. I deserve goodness. I deserve happiness. I deserve joy. I bring so much to this world. I am of value to this world. So with all of these five things that I began to do, it brought me to a place where I was beginning to live my best life. And that's when I met that young man, or that young man met me. Or
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to a couple of things you said. One of the things that you mentioned about, which I think is very important, is that solitude, right? And I think especially those of us, where we're on our journey of trying to find love or be found, and love. I'm reading a book right now, and one of the things that the gentleman talks about, like one of the first steps in finding love, if we want to use that phrase, is solitude, right? And I say the difference between, now this is the way I say it, the difference between loneliness, the difference between being alone and being in solitude is when you choose to be alone, right?
mm-hmm,
and you
Mm-hmm.
take it yourself and said, I'm not looking for someone to, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking to be found or whatever, but I'm going to purposely take this time to sit with myself, right? And to get to know myself and start really learning the things that you feel that's important to you, for yourself first. And then you can reflect back and say, okay, also what's important to me for me in a relationship. And I think that a lot of us are so I don't want to say lonely, but are so in a rush, should I say, to be in a relationship, to be with somebody,
Yeah,
to find love, that we don't even know what our definitions of love is. You know what I mean? And just like, oh, I just want to be with somebody, and then you get with somebody, and it's like, oh, I just want a good relationship. But what does that look like? What is
exactly.
your definition of a good relationship? Because what you may find with your definition of a good relationship, the person that you end up, bumping into or whatever, they may have a whole different set of criteria that makes their version of a relationship good. And so if you don't know what you find good and you don't know, your own definitions of what love looks like for you, when you get into a relationship, chances are you're going to get lost in the expectations of this other person. And you may also find that your expectations and your requirements, should I say, are not being met because it was
Yeah,
something that you never even took the time to figure out for yourself.
exactly, exactly. You're so right. There is one thing that I love saying, and it because it's a true statement. I love being with myself.
Mhm.
I'm not by myself. I'm with myself. I like me.
Yeah.
I'm good company. I make myself laugh sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that's so very important to your point. If you're not, if you don't take that time to be with yourself, to enjoy yourself, take yourself out to dinner, take yourself to the movies, go walk with yourself in the park, sit and listen to the birds chirp. Do you
Yeah.
even know if you like to hear the birds chirp?
Right.
You might, somebody might come along who's a bird enthusiast, and you find out, I don't even like birds chirping, you know? So it's very important, very, very important that you get to know yourself, that you spend that time with yourself, understanding what makes you tick.
Mhm. Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah. And
And
another
that's what I did.
Yeah, and another thing that you mentioned was the affirmations, and I think that is so important too. But that also takes some self reflection to even be able to affirm the things that's important to you, right?
Mhm.
But if you don't take the time to figure out like what is important to me, what do I enjoy, what do I want my life to look like, then you don't even know what to speak over yourself, in the morning. So I think everyone should definitely take the time to really sit down and get to know themselves and really think about what those values are. And one of the things that I did, which I like that I just decided to do it. I wrote down my affirmations, my morning affirmations, right? And probably like 20 of them, 20 of these affirmations that I use every morning. And then I made a video. I made
Ooh,
like a little, and we talk about, you mentioned nature with the birds chirping, and just like it's my voice, but it's over like just, some B-roll of a forest or whatever. And I basically go through daily affirmations, and I go through all of my affirmations. And so that, because what I found, sometimes we need to hear it, right? And
yes.
so sometimes I might get up, maybe today I'm tired, maybe I don't feel like saying them, but I can still hear it. I can push
Mm-hmm.
that play button and hear myself speaking life over myself. You know what I mean? And so I
Yeah.
just find that was just something that I just decided to do one day. And so pretty much every morning I have a video of with my affirmations, and then I have a prayer video that I watch while I'm getting ready for work and while I'm moving around, just to have it in the air and in the atmosphere to start my day every morning. And so I think those affirmations is definitely important. But again, it takes that self reflective work for
Yes.
us to do in order to realize that, you know what, this is what I want to happen in my life. This is what I want to happen in my day. So let me
Hmm.
affirm myself before I even get started. Start with some gratitude, start with some prayer, and then speak it over my day. Like, okay, what do I want to do today? What
Yes.
do I want to happen today? So one of the things, and I'll just give one of my two things that two of my affirmations that are very key for me. One is um, today I will introduce myself to someone new, right? And
I
so
love that.
what's the word I want to say? um, with being a podcaster and being a speaker, most people would think that because I speak for a living, that you're like, oh, you're like outgoing or whatever. And it's like, no,
Right.
really, I'm an introvert. You know what I mean? And so meeting new people is like a big thing for me, to put myself out there to say, hey, hello, my name is Ernest. How you doing? That is like a big thing for me. Like once we get past that, then I'm good. Then we can have a conversation. That initial meeting and introducing myself just from cold turkey. That's been a challenge for me for a while, and so that's one
Mm.
of the affirmations that I speak every morning. Like, all right, today I'm going to introduce myself to someone new. So whether it's at the gas station, whether it's the grocery store, just before this day is out, I'm gonna try to introduce myself to someone new, even if it's just striking up a random conversation, and then once I start that conversation, it's like, oh, by the way, my name is Ernest. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Just to be able to
I
do
love
that.
it. I
Um,
love it.
and my other one is prayer for divine opportunities and divine appointments, that I'll meet the right people at the right time to do the thing that's required for me for today. And so that's another affirmation that I love to start my day with, because I'm like, all right, Lord, you know what I got on my mind, right? You know
Right.
what
Right.
I want to accomplish, and you know your will for me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so just allow me to meet the right people at the right time, in order to fulfill whatever it is that you have for me to fulfill. So I'll share that with everybody. You guys can take it and write it down and use it for yourself. But those are two great ones for me. Um, so Ms. Lou, I want to go back into something else that you said, because you mentioned about once you had done this work, you being found by a lovely gentleman that took out the time to love you and your children. Um,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, as I know, that was for uh, appointed time, should I say. So
Yes.
share with us, even that meeting, and tell us a little bit about that, and the how that unfolded, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Okay. Well, uh, and I will say his name because I love saying his name. His name is Andy, and I knew him. He was a neighbor, and actually, he was seeing my friend girl 2 houses down. Um, and I would go over to my friend girl's house, and he would be there and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And we do the girl thing and so forth. And I moved away, and I think maybe 10 years later, had to be 10 years later, I'm at the gas station pumping gas. And mind you, I have blinders on. You know, I'm focused. I'm laser focused. I'm concentrating on me and my children and God, and we're just living this life. And I hear, "Hey, lady." And I turn and look, and it's him. And it was very good to see him. We exchanged pleasantries and talked about this, that, and the other, and got caught up and so forth. And then he asked me for my number, and immediately that rejected little girl came up to the forefront, and I shot him down. I was like, "Nah, no, no, I'm not doing that." I said, I tell you what, if I see you again, I'll give you my number. And he's like, oh, okay, okay, well, if that's what you want to do. And he kind of looked at me like I had two heads, like you weirdo. But again, I was laser focused, and I wasn't trying to, get knocked off my square.
Mm.
And so we parted companies very pleasantly. And Ernest, 2 days later, 2 days later, I'm coming out of my house, and I had my back to the street, and I was locking the doors. And my daughter says, "Mom, who is that?" And I turn around as I'm saying, "Who is who?" I see him sitting in the middle of the street in his truck, grinning like a Cheshire cat. He whips that truck up into the driveway, gets out, and says, "Can I have your number now?" Well, me being the woman of my word, I gave him my number, and that was March 14th, 2009. March 14th, 2009. We were married August 7th, 2010. We were inseparable.
Mm.
He was the love of my life. We enjoyed each other so much. We had a good time. Our families blended so well. I showed him some things. He showed me some things. We went on adventures, and we just and in the midst of it all, God was that threefold cord. He was the third cord, and we were not easily broken. We lived a life full. And then on October 29th, it was Halloween, um, 2022. I came home and he was sitting in the dark. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Luanda, I need you to take me to the emergency room. I'm not feeling too well." And we went, and we sat there, the hours long wait. And
Mm.
we sat there, and they did tests and so forth. And the doctor comes in and he says, "Well, everything looks good. Your CAT scan looks good and so forth." He said, "But there's one thing that is concerning me." He said, "I'd like to do an MRI." And I said, "Why? What do I'm the one that speaks up in the emergency room. Why? What's going on? What do you see? What are we looking at?" And he showed me, and he said, "This spot right here." He said, "I want to see if it's fluid or if it's solid." Okay. He comes back in after everything is done, and he tells us it's solid. And I said, "So what does that mean, Doc?" He says that means that there is a cancerous tumor, and we're going to admit your husband, and he's going to have surgery on Monday. This was a Friday evening. And uh, after the doctor walked out, we both just sat there in silence. Never would I ever. And he said the same thing. Never would I ever. My husband was a strong man. When I tell you strong, he would ride 30 miles 2 or 3 times a week, maybe 3 or 4 times a week on his bicycle.
Mm.
He was always weightlifting. He was always drinking plenty of fluids. And you always get on me, want to drink more water, you know. Um, the epitome of health. And so we got through the surgery. It was a sizable tumor. And the one thing that really made me pause was that there was no sign. There was
Mm.
no indication. There was nothing. I mean, we had gone on our honeymoon to the Smoky Mountains about a week or two before that. And he had an episode there, but they thought it was vertigo.
Mm.
And so after the surgery, I talked to the doctor and I said, so what are you looking at? What do you see? Because I know whenever they have tumors, they always slice it up and dice it up and check in and this, that, and the other. And this man tells me that my husband, the, the name of this tumor that my husband had was glioblastoma, and it was incurable. I said, what do you mean incurable? You just took it out. Um, he said the best way that I can describe it is if you have a sponge and you put a soaking wet towel on the sponge. You can take the sponge, I mean, you can take the towel off of the sponge, but the water goes down into the sponge. And he said that's how this type of tumor operates. It has legs that goes down into the brain. We can get what's on the surface, but it's going to pop up somewhere else.
Mm.
And I said, okay, so what do we do? What can we do? He said, there's nothing that we can do other than treat it. And I said, well, let's get to treating, sir. I
Mhm.
need you to get busy. And so we did. And it was for a year. My husband was diagnosed October 29, 2022 at 8:41 p.m., November 20th, 2023. He took his last breath. And it was the hardest thing that I've ever endured in my life. To go to see my husband, as strong as he was, go through that and become weak, dependent upon me. Would I do it again? I would absolutely do it again. I loved him,
Mm.
and I would tell him every day, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I love you till the wheels fall off. And then I'll be like the Flintstones and I'll pedal with my feet. That always used to make him laugh. But that's where I was. And that's when I experienced grief in such a way that I've never experienced it before in my life. It was
Yeah.
such a low. Nobody understood me. That was my thought. Nobody knows the pain that I'm going through. Nobody understands what it feels like in the middle of the night to reach over and not feel him there. Nobody understands. Nobody gets it. And I became a hermit, if you will. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything. Didn't want to see anybody. Didn't want to eat.
Mhm.
Thank God for my children. They they took care of me. They made sure that I ate. They made sure that I got up and showered. They took care of me. And I want to say, good 3 months, I endured such agony because the house, everything in the house reminded me of him. Everywhere I looked, he was there, but he wasn't there.
Mhm.
And 3 months, I would say, went by, and I heard within my inner self, get up. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to deal with anybody. I didn't want to get up. Okay, I'll get up. And so I did. Now, before my husband became deathly ill, I was in the process of getting my master life coach. certification. But I stopped because I needed to tend to my husband.
Mm.
At that moment, I decided I'm going to finish what I had started because he would want me to. He was always a finisher. I will say that he was always a finisher. And so I did. I finished, I got my Master Life Coach certification. I went further and got my social psychology certification. I went further and got my workplace mental health ally certification. And I utilized what I gained to help others because what I went through, I didn't have anyone. I didn't know where to go. I felt alone. And at that moment, that's when I said, I'm going to help someone get through their grief. I'm going to reassure them that they're not alone. And the crazy things that you're thinking in your head right now, it's normal.
Yeah.
It's normal. Because I thought some crazy stuff. And I
Yeah.
thought I was crazy. But I found that it's normal. So here I am. And I'm doing the best I can, helping others achieve and do to become their best life and ensure that they too can make it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that experience with grief. Actually, if I can go back a little bit, even just to mention, that your husband had cancer. I lost my mom and my mother-in-law both to cancer,
Mm,
and mother-in-law first, right? And she got really sick, and is it's a thing of going through that experience with her, right? So we were very close. I loved her so much, and we lived close by each other. We probably only lived like maybe 5 minutes away from each other
mm,
at that time. And so I was over there constantly. I'd come over and make sure she was good. Um, and she was such a strong person too, right?
mm-hmm.
Single mother at one time before she got married. She had one child, which was my wife at the time, and always been that strong person, handle her business. And I remember it just really being hard for her when the cancer started really affecting her body. And I remember us, being over one day, and she tried to get off the couch and she fell, and so,
Oof.
I came in and I got down on the floor with her, and she was crying. I was just like, it's okay, and she was just like, man, like to go from being like the strong person, the person that everyone goes to, and to be physically strong too, to now be in a space where you need someone else to help
Yep.
you. It's like one of those things, and that was really hard for her. And I was like, I know it's hard, but like I'm here. I'm here to help you. Like you don't have to do it by yourself, and it's gonna be okay. And I remember when it got to the point that eventually she did pass away. And then it was like 3 years. I want to say it was 3 years later before we found out that my mom had cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom got sick, and she did start having some ailments and things of that nature, but it wasn't. And I say this with all due compassion to anyone who's lost someone from cancer, and also to my family, because um I don't want to sound inconsiderate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But after going through with my mother in law and seeing the effects from the beginning of cancer, and
Yeah.
that whole journey of where it
Yeah.
takes you to being completely, you know, not even what's the word, responsive anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like complete. I seen how bad it could be. Let me put it
Yeah.
that way.
Oh
And
yeah.
when my mom got sick, and it probably was a good maybe 6 months from the time we found out before she passed. And although I was like, man, I definitely, wouldn't want my mom to pass, but knowing what I had just been
Yeah.
through and knowing the effect of what that cancer could have done to her, I was
Hmm.
like, I'm I'm happy that she didn't have to go through that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm
Yeah.
definitely sad for, the fact that she had to go through it at all, any parts of it, but just like, man, I'm happy that she didn't have to go through
Yeah.
the worst of it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so
Absolutely.
even coming out of that and definitely dealing with the grief of it myself, um, that took a hard turn for me. And and I speak very openly about it, because of where I went. I became, suicidal at that time because at that time I also was going
Yeah.
through a divorce and everything else that was happening to me at that time. And I ended up started going to bereavement support, and that's like you mentioned about, feeling like you're alone. And then you get into
Hmm.
this room where you're in a room of like-minded, not
Yes.
necessarily like-minded, but like experienced, you
Yes.
know, in a room with other people who have lost,
Hmm.
someone special to them also, and that they're going through and they're dealing with the grief, and really begin to learn about grief and learn how it shows up and learn how
Yes.
it manifests itself, and how sometimes when you think it's over, it
I
comes,
am.
it comes right back around. I
That
always say,
is so true. So
yeah,
true.
I always say they call it the grief wheel for a reason because it never stops rolling. You
It
know,
never,
depending on
ever
uh,
stops.
depending on the ground that that it's rolling on, you might
Hmm.
have a time where it's nice and smooth and everything is going, and all of a sudden you just one day you just hit that pothole, and it's just like, oh man, it's back. You know what I mean? It's like I thought I was
Right.
done with this. You
Right.
know, but
Yeah. And the crazy thing about that, Ernest, is that I have found I could be laughing and crying at the same time.
Mhm.
Literally. I'm holding a picture and I'm remembering the time that we took that picture, and it was a happy time and we were goofing off and the tears will just start rolling. You know? It's grief is a mystery.
Mhm.
It's a mystery, and no one has yet to solve it. You know?
All right.
You can't solve grief. You
Yeah.
have to succumb, you have to absorb, and then you have to move. You have to let it become a part of you as you're moving forward, because
Mhm.
you can't separate yourself from it.
No.
You know, you can't. It's going to be there, no matter how hard you try, no matter how good you are, no matter how busy you make yourself. It's going to come back at the most inopportune time.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
And
so
that's one of
yeah.
the things that I definitely, when I talk about it to people, first of all, I definitely want people to know that it's normal.
Hmm.
Grief, it's normal for you to grieve, and I say that grief is the evidence that you loved hard, right?
Absolutely.
Like if you're not feeling some type of way after
Hmm.
losing someone, then you probably have to reevaluate,
Yeah.
your relationship. Like,
Right.
did you really care, about that person? Because there's no way that
Yeah.
you could lose someone that you loved so deeply and not
Hmm.
feel some type of way about it.
Yeah.
And then also, you just have to. Grief is a journey that you never. Once you're on it, it's like a hamster wheel. You never get off of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, we talked about that road. Sometimes it's just smooth,
Yeah.
And I tell people it's been, I want to say 16 years, about 16 years,
Wow.
since my mom passed. And
Wow.
I tell people all the time, like sometimes it feels like it's been 16 years. And
Hmm.
then sometimes it feels like it's 16 minutes ago.
Right.
I mean, it just depends
Exactly.
on that day and time. But as you become one with your grief and you acknowledge it and don't try to run from it, but you
That's it.
actually walk in it, then even when those times come, you can find yourself laughing and smiling at the
Yes.
same time, crying and smiling at the same time.
Yes.
Now you're able to process it from a healthy place. That
Hmm.
yes, I am sad that my mom's no longer here, but I can still smile because I
Hmm.
can remember the days that we had, the times that we had, the
Absolutely.
experiences that we had. And then that's when grief kind of becomes your friend, you know,
Hmm.
because it allows you to say, now we can walk together. Because
Right.
when you try not to, and that grief will come, it's gonna roll over you. It's like I'm gonna keep riding over you until you start walking with me. You know what I mean? And then once you're able to be like, all right, I
So
accept
true.
it, I walk with it, and again, it just becomes a part of you.
Yes, it
And
does.
then the highs is not as high and the lows is
Hmm.
not as low.
Yep.
Just like, okay, here we are.
Yeah.
And we allow ourselves to deal with it. Um, I don't want to end on that note. I mean, we
Yeah.
can, but I don't necessarily want to end there. So I want to ask a question because one of the things I've shared, I had the opportunity to do my first TEDx talk. I think it was last year, and I talked about my experience with my mom passing and me being started to be suicidal after everything that I was going through at that time period. And I talked about the acronym of FUN, right, which stands for Focus, Unite, and Normalize, because I had to take the focus off myself and put it on to someone else in order for me to gain the strength that I needed to stay here. And that person was my daughter, right? So I began to focus on my daughter and put all my energy in. Okay, I have to stay here because I have to make sure she's okay. I
Hmm.
have to stay here because I don't want the hurt that I'm feeling to be transferred to her if something was to happen to me.
Right.
And then the U stands for Unite, and we talked about the bereavement, going to bereavement support, and being in that room with other people who had lost loved ones, also. And then you hear some stories and some of the ways that people have lost other loved ones, and sometimes you're like, well, mine wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? I lost, someone I loved to sickness, but someone else lost someone to circumstance, and
Hmm.
some of those circumstances was like, whoo, okay,
Yeah.
you know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
But
Right.
you unite with these people who are going through like-minded experiences, who are going through the grief together, and you learn how to share and uplift one another and pray for one another and walk with each other on this grief journey. And that allows you to make it a little bit more manageable, until you're able to get on your feet and really become one with your grief, like we said. And then
Right.
the N stands for normalize, right? And so one of the words that I heard in bereavement, this phrase of your new normal,
Oh, yeah.
because nothing would never be normal in the
Ever.
way it was, but it can
Nothing.
be a new normal, right?
Yes.
It's just your new normal. So what do my life looks like now?
Hmm.
What does my day to day look like now?
Yeah.
Without this person who has been definitely so inspirational, but such a part of my life.
Hmm.
Been so instrumental in my
Hmm.
life, and now they're not here in the physical with me. So what does my life look like now? What is my normal now?
Yeah.
And once you be able to, look at your life in that sense and say, okay, this is my new normal.
Hmm.
This is how I operate, and be able to see the sun again in that new normal.
Right.
See the sun on your face and find happiness again, in your new normal. I think it's definitely the way that I experienced it, to be able to, be here having this conversation with you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't in a good place during that
Hmm.
time period. And so, now that I would like to say we are walking hand in hand with our grief, and kind
Mhm.
of, allowing it to roll with us, and kind of we kind of roll with the punches, as they say. What would be something that word of advice or something of that nature that you could give to someone who's maybe just beginning this grief journey? Maybe they just recently lost someone, or maybe in my case, it's been a long time since they lost that person, but they never still learned to walk hand in hand with that grief, and so it's still having a strong effect negatively on them emotionally, and things of that nature. So, what would be something that you could share with someone who's grieving right now to help them in this space that they're in?
I would say allow yourself to feel all the feels. Don't run from them. Don't fight them. Let the wave overtake you and flow over you. The wave will soon recede and you'll be able to come up for air. But don't try to fight what you're feeling, because to your point that you said earlier, I always say grief is the greatest compliment to love. And if you're grieving, it's normal. If you don't grieve, that, again, to your point, check the relationship. But make sure you allow yourself that time to grieve. Do not try to fight it. Watch your emotional roller coaster,
Mhm.
because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. There are going to be, it's the up and down, the ebb and flow, the zig, the zag, the in and out, the high tide, the low tide. That is going to be something that you're going to have to ride out. Find you someone that you can trust. Find someone that will allow you, to call them in the middle of the night and let you cry and not say a word. Find you that someone that is there not to give advice, but they're there just to be there for you. I know there was one time a friend girl of mine lost her mother. I didn't go there trying to tell her this is going to be all right. This is woo, 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 woo. I was just there for her. I was the presence in the room. I cleaned the house. I washed the dishes. I cooked a meal. I made sure that her children were okay. It was the presence.
Mhm.
And she told me, and this was years after her mother had passed away, she said, I was the one that gave her the strength because she would look up and see me, my presence. I was there. So find someone who can be that presence for you, who will also be that encouragement for you when you're ready, when you are ready to move forward. Not someone that's pushing you, oh, you ought to get up, no, that's not the kind of company that you need. So find that someone who is a presence, but is also an encouragement. That's what I would say to anyone who is going through right now, who is experiencing loss. Know that it's not going to last always, but
Mhm.
it is going to last. The intensity is not going to last always, but it's going to be there.
Right.
There are things that you are going to experience during this journey that you would never thought that you would experience before. But when you get to the other side, you're going to be able to stand there and say, I made it.
Mhm.
I made it. And that's where you want to get to. Don't stay. in the darkness of grief, because grief also brings light.
Mhm.
It brings light. When you look at that picture, it's going to make you smile. When you have that memory, it's going to make you smile. So let grief bring you light, because it will.
Yeah,
And last but not least, let grief become your friend. Allow it to walk alongside of you. Allow it to take up room, take up some space. And pretty soon, you're going to be saying, "Hello, grief. I know your familiar face. You're welcome here
yeah,
because you remind me. You remind me of someone that I have loved."
yeah. I love it. I love it, Miss Lou. I definitely appreciate you being on, and taking the time to share your story. And we've had conversations before, of course. um but I definitely appreciate you sharing with my listeners, with my audience. One thing I do know, you do have a book out now, and should be coming to Amazon soon.
Yes, I
So
do.
tell us a little bit about the book before we get out of here.
Well, the book is called Five Steps to Becoming the Best You. It lists all of the five steps that I mentioned earlier in the podcast, but each one requires you to go deeper. We're surface people. We like to stay on the surface. Well, this workbook is going to require you to go a little bit deeper, to uncover the things that you have kept covered for such a long time. It's time to take the mask off. It's time to take the cover off, peel it away so that you can get to the real you
Mhm.
and you can become the best you. So I always tell anyone who gets the book, please don't rush through it. Don't rush through it. Each chapter should at least take you a week, because you want to stay there, you want to sit there, you want to peel it away, you want to dig deep and find those things that are holding you down, find those things that no longer serve you, uproot them so that you can move forward. So it's my book, Becoming the Best You. I don't know if you can see it.
I could at first, and then you just disappeared on me. But I can see
Yeah,
it.
there it is. So I'm hoping that you all can get the book once it is posted onto Amazon. That should be available for you in within the week. Please get it if you are needing to get a little guidance that you can start on your own, and then of course reach out to me through my website, www.luandadockery.com, and we can sit and talk. We can meet. We can have one-on-one sessions and dive a little bit deeper. Shameless plug. I also have a couple other books that are coming out. Um, two of them are finished, and a third one is on the way. One of them is Wisdom of the Widow, and I'm just waiting to get that published. And the other is a 90-day prayer book, Prayer for the Day. Anyone who knows me, they know that I post a prayer for the day every day, every day. Even when the day that my husband passed, I posted a prayer for the day. So this is I've compiled 90 of my prayers and I've put them in a book. So I hope that, once it's published, you all can enjoy that as well.
All
And
right.
then the third one is the sequel to Wisdom of the Widow. I'm still working on that.
Okay. All right. So when those become available, we'll definitely make sure that um, Those links will be in the description of this podcast. So whenever you're watching this podcast episode or listening to it, make sure you go down into the descriptions and see if those links are there, because we will definitely make sure that they are here. So thank you again, Miss Lou, for being on and sharing your story with us. Before we get out of here, to my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the podcast. Make sure you guys are checking us out on our main website, which is dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org. We will be, depending on when you're listening to this, we will be doing a whole upgrade of the website. But right now, you still can go there. It's still up and active. But if you should happen to go there and it's not up, don't worry about it. It will be coming back. We just need to do some upgrading to it. So make sure you guys go there and check us out at the website. Also, go to ebooksbyejames.com in order to check out some of the ebooks that I have written, that's there for you to purchase. I have several. One of them is the Core Four, which is the core four values that every daughter should get from her father. And that is a ebook that we actually talk about as part of the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Me and my guests, every time I have a guest on, we talk about those four core values that every daughter should get from her father. I think that's an amazing ebook. I think you guys will love it. And one of my favorite ebooks that I've written is Forgiving Me, the 4-Step Guide to Self-Forgiveness. As we talk about grief, one of those things that grief shows us sometimes is the grief and the grudges that we hold against ourselves for past hurts and past things that we may have done to ourselves. But the Forgiving Me ebook allows you to kind of walk through and begin to learn how to forgive yourself for some of the mistakes that you may have made in your past. So again, go to ebooksbyejames.com in order to check out all of the ebooks that we have there. There are several of them. Also, go to deal2healtees.com. That's deal, the number 2, healtees.com. That is our inspirational t-shirt line, including our podcast merch t-shirts, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. There's one for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, as well as one for the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Make sure you guys go there and check that out. And last but not least, over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every other month. And we talk about everything surrounding forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, even forgiveness of the world. These workshops are 100% free. They are virtual. So whenever you're listening to this podcast, either one just ended or there's one coming up, but you can sign up for our next free virtual workshop on forgiveness by going to forgivenessmission.com, or you can go to Eventbrite and look up Forgiveness Workshop by the Forgiveness Mission. Again, these workshops are virtual and they're absolutely free, but the information is priceless. So make sure that you guys go and check them out there. So again, Miss Lou, I want to say thank you so very much for being on. Real quickly, I don't know if I don't remember if I heard you say it again. Could you share with us your social media handles and where we can find you in order to follow you and work with you?
My website is www.luandadockery.com. All my other social media handles is at Luanda Dockery, YouTube at Luanda Dockery, Instagram at Luanda Dockery. Um, I think I have what is it? Threads at Luanda Dockery, TikTok at Luanda Dockery. All of it is my name, so I'm easy to find.
All right,
Very
all
easy
right.
to
That is
find.
great. That is great. Again, I want to say thank you so very much for
Thank
being
you.
on, and we can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed.
Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.